rw'umunsi umwe mu Rwanda yari yitabiriye inama y'abakuru b'ibihugu n'abaza guverinoma mu muryango wa Commonwealth inama izwi nka Kagame imaze iminsi isoje imirimo yayo hano mu Rwanda, ariko nyuma yo kwitabira iyo nama akaba n'ubundi agirira uruzinduko rw'akazi mu Rwanda, aho agiye kwakirwa na nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika Paul Kagame. Minisitiri w'Intebe Hsien akaba ari Minisitiri w'Intebe wa Singapore, ari nawe uyobora iki gihugu, birumvikana bijyanye n'imiterere.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency President Paul Kagame, Your Excellency Prime Minister Hsien Loong. We thank you for joining us for this press conference. You may sit down, please. We thank you for joining us for this press conference, bringing together members of the press from Rwanda and from Singapore. We'll begin with remarks from Your Excellencies, followed by questions from the press. Your Excellency President Paul Kagame, it is my honor to invite you to deliver your remarks.
Good afternoon. Prime Minister, allow me to start by thanking you and your delegation for visiting our country and attending the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. The Prime Minister and I had very productive discussions, and I think we are going to be doing even more together in the years ahead. I want to thank Singapore for being a reliable partner over the years. We value highly the trade and investment links, as well as the cooperation between our central banks. Both our countries have created a strong foundation. Singapore's development model and its commitment to social cohesion and national unity are very impressive. I hope you and your delegation enjoyed your stay here, and I very much look forward to the time I can visit Singapore again. I now invite you to make your remarks, Prime Minister Lee, and thank you once again for being with us here today.
Thank you, President Kagame. Thank you also for hosting me and my delegation. We are very happy to be here in Rwanda. Last week, I attended the Kagame meeting, and I'd like to congratulate President Kagame for hosting a successful Kagame. Rwanda has done an excellent job organizing this major in-person, high-level international event, despite the challenges of COVID-19. This is my first official visit to an African country. It's been a very meaningful one. I'm very glad that Kagame has created an opportunity for me to meet my counterparts in Africa face to face, to exchange views and perspectives with each other. I'm also deeply appreciative that I've had the chance to learn more about Rwanda and to further our friendship and bilateral cooperation. Singapore may be geographically far away, but we have many friends in Africa. Singapore's founding Prime Minister, the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, first visited Africa more than 50 years ago. Even now, some of the African leaders I met at Kagame still recall his visit to their countries, and I'm very grateful for this reservoir of goodwill in Africa towards Singapore. Over the last decade, Singapore's interactions with Africa have grown. Our G2G cooperation has increased with regular visits between officials and leaders. More Singaporeans are coming to work here in Africa. Yesterday, I hosted tea for some Singaporeans living and working here in Rwanda. Many of them were young people seeking challenges and opportunities. They've seen the promise in this young society, and they're pursuing their projects here with passion. Our companies are also venturing into Africa. It's a new market for them, but the economic opportunities are growing as the continent opens up to digitalization, regional integration, and global trade. There are many bright spots in Africa, and Rwanda is one of the brightest. Singapore looks forward to deepening our cooperation and increasing trade and investment between Singapore and Rwanda. President Kagame has visited Singapore a few times. I'm very glad to reciprocate by visiting this beautiful and impressive country. Rwanda is rapidly developing, innovative, and forward-looking, building a nation. And I congratulate the President for his leadership in stewarding Rwanda's development over the years. In our meeting, President Kagame and I reaffirmed the excellent state of Singapore-Rwanda relations and discussed areas for further collaboration. Despite the challenges of COVID-19, our two countries continue to cooperate actively. Our people-to-people ties have remained strong. Leaders and officials have kept up the tempo of engagements, and the President and I are committed to advancing our bilateral partnership. We've established good collaboration, including making new initiatives in the digital economy, in fintech, and even in judicial cooperation. On the multilateral front, Rwanda and Singapore also collaborate strongly, including at the UN. Both are members of the Forum of Small States. We work closely together to advance the interests of small states and strengthen the multilateral system. Singapore is encouraging our people and businesses to venture into new markets in Africa. We are also happy to share our experience in economic development, HR development, and capacity building with others. That's why we established the Singapore Cooperation Program, the SCP, in 1992. SCP programs have been well received by officials of African countries. Over 12,000 African officials, including many from Rwanda, have attended SCP courses in Singapore to date. On this 30th anniversary of the SCP, I'm happy to announce a 3-year Singapore-Africa partnership package. We will customize courses in priority areas for Africa, and these will cover emerging issues such as climate change and sustainability, and digitalization, and smart cities. We will provide priority placement for African officials in our SCP courses, and we will also offer postgraduate scholarships for senior African officials in Singapore universities. I'm particularly glad to be able to announce the launch of this technical cooperation package in Rwanda. Rwandan officials have actively participated in SCP courses over the years, and we look forward to Rwanda's and other African countries' continued participation in the SCP. Although we are on different continents, our two countries have much in common. Both are small with limited resources. Both place importance on international cooperation to improve our societies and our people's lives. Both seek to work with other small countries to secure peace, progress, and prosperity for our peoples in a dangerous world. I therefore look forward to working closely with President Kagame to ensure that the relationship between our two countries continues to grow from strength to strength. And I'd also like to offer early congratulations to Rwanda for the 28th Liberation Day, which is on the 4th of July, and to thank President Kagame for his excellent hospitality to me and my delegation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prime Minister Loong. And
begin with questions from the press. We'll start with Straits Times.
Good afternoon, I'm Haris from the Straits Times in Singapore. My question is for PM Lee. PM, you've spent quite a few days in Rwanda, and we see that you've been around visiting several places. Could you please share with us, what potential you see for Rwanda and Africa, and what kind of role Singapore could play to develop such potential?
I have only visited Rwanda, and in Rwanda I have only visited Kigali. But from all that I have read about Rwanda and about Africa, it's a continent on the move. It's an enormous continent, it's a huge population, it's very diverse. The countries have a huge range of economic situations and political environments. And in that complexity, there are multiple bright spots, and Rwanda is one of them. I've spent these last few days in Rwanda. I've had a chance to go around. Yesterday I went down to the market to walk around. I went and visited wetlands sanctuary for gray-crowned cranes. And I met Singaporeans who are living and working in Africa, and many of them in Kigali now for some years. So I have a feel of the place a little bit. It's tightly run, it's on the move, it's anxious to get ahead. It's had a traumatic past in the genocide. I visited the genocide memorial for Kigali this morning, and it's determined to pick itself up beyond that, to reconcile the hurt and to move forward and see hope for the future. It's a country with a young population. The median age is 22. Our median age in Singapore is 40 plus. And we were also with a median age at about 22 some decades ago in our early years of nation building. And I get the sense of the same desire to make progress, to succeed, and to make a better future for the people. And when a population feels like that and is on the move and has a leadership and a government which is organizing it and setting the direction and making things happen, there are opportunities for themselves and for their partners. And we're very happy that they see in Singapore and in East Asia a potentially useful partner. We cooperate with them and we can do more. G2G, we have the Singapore Cooperation Program. I just talked about the Singapore-Africa Partnership Package, which we are launching. In the non-government sector, our companies are increasingly in Africa and East Africa. And as I described, our young people are here, chasing their dreams, going on a path which is up to now not the traditional path, but they are breaking a new way forward and making a mark for themselves. And I hope more will follow them.
Thank you. The next question from RBA.
Isabel Masoza from RBA. My question goes to the Prime Minister of Singapore and the President of Rwanda. Both countries have faced criticism as you developed your country and economy. I'd like to know what allowed you to pursue your national priorities and stay the course that has now resulted into the success both countries face.
Well, what is the question? That we face criticism? And why did we stay the course? Well, I speak for Singapore,
Right.
but we stay the course because our first responsibility is to serve our people, to do the right thing for them and make sure the country grows. And you have to make up your mind what is right, what's the direction you want to take, how you want to lead the country forward. You may be right, you may be wrong. Nobody is right all the time. Nobody has a monopoly of wisdom in the world. You have to listen to views, you have to listen to criticisms within your team, within the country. And even if it comes from outside the country, listen to it objectively. Does it make sense? Do they have a point? Have I made a mistake? Can we do better? And if so, we do. Change. Better take it, find a way, remedy whatever is not right. But then you will still get criticisms, even when you're trying to do the right thing. And you will have to ask yourself, what is it which the purpose of this criticism? If they're trying to help you to do better, then you listen to it. In the end, you have to make up your own judgment because you carry the responsibility for the outcome. The person who is criticizing, if I follow your advice and things go wrong, can you feed my population? Can you take them if they become refugees? If not, thank you, I appreciate your goodwill, but I have to carry the responsibility and I have to make the decision. On the other hand, there are also some critics who will take the view that you don't fit their model of how countries should operate, or you don't share their priorities and values, and that you should share their priorities and values. And the world is a big place, countries are diverse. We have different circumstances, different histories, different cultures, different aspirations, and therefore different values and different ways of running our country. And if you have a different view, well, I respect your view, but I ask you to respect my view. And if you criticize me, and we don't think it is a fair or correct criticism, or your facts are not correct, well, then I will respectfully disagree with you and set down my perspective and explain why I'm doing things this way, so that I convince my own people and they do not get confused. And so that anybody else in the world can listen to you and listen to me and make their own judgment. And ultimately, the test is this. We are here, we are leading the country, we are responsible to our population as elected leaders, and we face elections. So we're trying to do the right thing. We will account at the elections. If the people endorse what we do, we will continue to serve them with their mandate. If we're not doing the right thing, well, another team will be in charge. And I think on that basis, you can accept criticism without being defensive, without being overly swayed by different views, and find the right path forward for Singapore.
Well, Prime Minister Lee has really explained a lot and in a very deep and as well broad way. While he was speaking for Singapore, it ended up actually extending to Rwanda's case in a way, and so it will be a difficult thing to say more in addition to what he has just talked about. But let me, so first of all, thank Prime Minister Lee for that eloquent explanation. I would add a few things, but almost going in the same direction. Two things, the criticisms and how we stay the course moving forward, as the question is. In the area of criticism, again, so many things have been said about democracy, about freedoms, rights, and so on and so forth. Democracy actually may mean one thing, broad thing, but it expresses itself in many ways. So sometimes people get confused when democracy is being expressed in one way or the other. It has not met the standard or the test or definition of some people, and therefore criticisms will be built on that, and one has to try and find out the sense the criticism makes. Then rights and freedoms, it's always going to be difficult to, and it is not that to everyone we have to keep explaining ourselves every time, because a criticism can go on for 20 years or 30 years, the same criticism, the same thing. They keep playing it over and over. And you look back and wonder, in 20 years, if it is criticism against Rwanda or against the leaders of Rwanda, is it really true that in 20 years, nothing has changed? Or 25 years, nothing has changed about the criticism that is constantly made. That's what really tells the story, that maybe some of the criticisms are not either accurate or genuine or fair. How can you, and yet, these criticisms come with lessons as well. It's like you've got to learn something from me. So, and I'm always going to be the one giving lessons. But even when you receive lessons, you expect that at some point somebody learning, being taught to do things, will graduate and actually reach a point where maybe these lessons have been useful. But if it is criticism that goes on for decades, and lessons parallel to that going on for the same number of years, and then nothing comes out of it, then people have to look back and re-examine whether this was really best in fact or in genuineness that the criticism otherwise should be serving. So we will be able to do things for our countries, as many other people who criticize belong to other countries or lead other countries, and at the end of the day, we have results or don't have them. And that should speak for itself, that there have been results. In 10 years, a country moved from one point to another, made progress. Building on this interaction that is always going to be there about people appreciating or criticizing what one is doing, at the end of the day, what we need is, has there been a difference made for the people? Because we also talk about people. We are talking about people. It's not just whether you like me or you don't like me, and it's whether what we are doing for and with our people, at the end of the day, a judgment can be made by the same people that a difference has been made. And sometimes you let people argue with the facts of those results. In the end, of course, I know also that some people have their own facts. They may change the facts as they are and have their own facts. But that's life we have to live and accept, and still be able to move on. And therefore, staying the course comes from the fact that you understand what you have to do, and the country and the people have to understand what they want, what are their aspirations, where have they come from, where do they want to go. And the leaders must make sure that there is that connection between the people and policy and leadership, and there has to be a vision that has been laid out, that people are moving in a certain direction and what they want to achieve. And we keep measuring together whether that progress has been. And once you allow this to keep going and being the guide of what you want to do, I think criticisms are things you can live with, you can learn from. But at the end of the day, people need food at the table, need security, need to be free to do whatever they want. They need to connect with the rest of the world, and so on and so forth. So we may not get things 100% right, and who does anyway? I don't know. But a certain level of progress is measured, is considered something that you keep building on and move on. So that's good you brought it up to that question, because actually there are many similarities between Rwanda and Singapore in many of those areas. Of course, Rwanda still being at a much lower level of development, and we want to pull ourselves out of that and move on. Singapore, clearly at a higher level of development. And I think working together, and as Prime Minister Lee explained, even the support Singapore has been extending to some of our countries. Rwanda has benefited already a lot from our partnership with Singapore. Singapore has been generous enough to extend this cooperation to the rest of our continent. I know many countries also need that, like Rwanda has been needing that. So I can only assure you and Mr. Prime Minister that we will work together and learn from criticism, but also make progress.
Thank you. Next question from Roy FM.
Good afternoon. My name is Jackie Lumbasi, Royal FM. My question goes to Prime Minister Lee. There's a general feeling that the Commonwealth as a body benefits countries or members with huge economic muscle compared to the smaller economies. What is your view on such sentiments, Prime Minister?
Well, the Commonwealth is an association of countries. Many have had historical connections with Britain. Some haven't, but have decided that they would like to join the Commonwealth and to work together and cooperate together within the Commonwealth. We work out where we can cooperate, where we can help one another, where we can find win-win opportunities to collaborate, and we do so. The scope depends on how far the individual countries are prepared to go. Some of it is done through the auspices of the Commonwealth, formally, the Commonwealth Secretariat. I think in the scheme of things, that's rather modest because the amount of resources available that way is not huge. But there's a lot of other cooperation which goes on between Commonwealth countries because we know we are fellow Commonwealth members and therefore we work informally together with each other. And that is the value of the Commonwealth, that we cooperate. With that branding, we are both Commonwealth countries. There is a certain, I won't go on to say shared values, but certain commonality in a broad approach and mindset, which means if I work together with you, I think it's likely to go somewhere. And that's very valuable. There's another aspect of the Commonwealth, which is development assistance to the not so developed members. And that's welcome too. Inevitably, the needs will be much greater than the resources available. But the most valuable development assistance really, as I explained just now, is in terms of developing technical capabilities, human resources, and uplifting the education of the people. And that's the way the Singapore Cooperation Program is designed, and particularly the Singapore-Africa Partnership Package. And that's also Singapore's experience when we were not yet so developed young economy, and we received help from the Commonwealth and other Commonwealth members. For example, there was a scheme called the Colombo Plan Scholarships. Australia, New Zealand, and some other countries gave scholarships to Singapore and other then developed, not so developed members to go and study at their universities. And then they came back and they made, in Singapore's case, very considerable contributions in our government, in our administration. Many ministers were former Colombo Plan scholars. And some of them, of course, went out into the private sector and they made a broad contribution to our economy. I myself, when I went overseas, I went on a government scholarship, but I also got a Commonwealth scholarship, which I am always grateful for, and it leaves you a warm feeling for a long time. And we also got technical assistance, which helped us to master how to upgrade ourselves, develop, and improve productivity and the lives of our people. So I think if we look at it that way, then the Commonwealth doesn't do everything we would hope for, but on balance, it's good that we are in the Commonwealth, and that's why we still stay there. And that's why countries like Rwanda joined 2015, I think, not so long ago. And even at this meeting, we had new members joining, Togo and Gabon. So they must see value in it.
Thank you. I'll take the last question from Channel News Asia.
Hi, this is Sheldon from Channel News Asia. My question is for President Kagame on our ties between the two countries. What do you see Rwanda doing more with Singapore as well as with Asia? Thank you.
Right. With Singapore and Asia, Rwanda is already doing some things, but the most important ones to us, and I guess the partners we deal with value that, is one, trade and investment. How do we increase trade and investment with each other? And many other things we do are in the area of education. Young people have been getting education from Singapore, from other parts of Asia. We work together in the area of technology, which really catalyzes our development. And as we see what it has done, what technology and the use of technology has contributed to the development of either Singapore or those other Asian partners. We look at issues of security. We want to work with them on dealing with climate change, which affects every part of the world. There are practices, there are, again, technologies, there are scientific research efforts that have been made in different parts of the world, and notably Asia, Singapore are at the forefront of this. This really, and of course, I can't forget to mention looking at the situation you have had in the recent past of this pandemic, the health sector. How do we deal with each other? How do we cooperate in this area where we strengthen our capacities and possibilities to meet healthcare challenges and the future challenges brought by these pandemics. So the area covers a lot of ground and needs, but for us, the way I have outlined them becomes our priority.
Thank you, Excellencies. This marks the end of the press conference. Mr. Prime Minister, I wish you an enjoyable rest of the stay here in Rwanda.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, President.
ngaho rero uko ikiganiro n'abanyamakuru abayobozi b'ibihugu byombi bamaze kugirana n'abanyamakuru birumvikana akaba ari ikiganiro mu by'ukuri kigarutse ku butwererane n'umubano hagati y'u Rwanda na Singapore cyo kimwe